Welcome into the rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400 around the world on the iHeartRadio app. My name is Rob Sanders. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. As always, jam-packed show planned for you today. Oh, man, here's what we're going to get into today. We've got, as I go through my stack of stuff, I've got a team that is keeping an eye on a potential trade for Deshaun Watson. Who is that team? We'll tell you about that momentarily. Also, we're going to get into, this just came out, like hot off the press from the NCAA. If you were following my blog page at foxsportsradio1400.com, you would know about it already because I just posted about it earlier. I kind of want to hit this first, and then I'm going to get into my 10 things that I question heading into camp for South Carolina, okay? So we'll get into that in a moment. But the NCAA released their COVID-19 guidance for fall sports. Here's the gist of it. Chief Medical Officer Brian Hainline said in a release, current vaccination rates remain inadequate to provide community-level immunity. It's essential that member schools work in concert with federal, state, and local public health officials to develop COVID-19 prevention and management strategies that make sense for them. Basically, let me put it into the easiest part for you here. The NCAA is saying, yes, we acknowledge that there is issues there, but we're putting all of the blame on the schools. That's basically what it boils down to. You guys come up with your own thing, and we're just going to deal with that. That's what we're going to do. They will test people who aren't vaccinated within 3 to 5 days of them arriving on campus. Now, how in the hell are they going to know who's vaccinated and who's not? Just saying. Walk up to someone. Are you vaccinated? Do they have to tell you? I don't get that. During competition season, the unvaccinated will be subjected to weekly PCR NAAT testing or 3 times a week antigen testing when no competition is scheduled. For the vaccination, there will be no testing unless it's symptomatic or based on a risk assessment of a documented close contact with COVID-19. Okay, terrific. You basically are showing why the SEC is sitting down there in Birmingham thinking, you know what? How can we develop our own super conference and have our own national championship type thing going here? Can we do that? Because the NCAA is toothless and doesn't do anything anyway. I mean, they'll pop South Carolina on the hand for having too much icing on a cookie. But when it comes to things that are valid, like, I don't know, North Carolina having an African-American studies program where people graduated from it that couldn't read. Yeah, we won't touch them. If you want to do something worthwhile there, NCAA, how about this? Finish the investigation on Tennessee and tell us what you're going to do to the program that was giving away money in McDonald's bags. Let's start with that. That would be something valid, right? But let's go there first. Before we start just pushing things off on everybody else, hey, you guys take care of your own COVID stuff. That's what we're going to do. That organization is an absolute failure. I mean, seriously. It is ridiculous. And you know what? I've thought for a long time about, I love the way that college sports are. But with the name, image, and likeness bill going through, I think that's absolutely great. Not because I'm from the front of, hey, college kids should be getting money, because in my opinion, just to be honest, I think getting your college degree paid for is a big deal, and a lot of people struggle for that. A lot of people struggle to get their degree and have it paid for. Still paying on my wife's degrees. She's got multiple. Lord help us. Anyway. But the fact that the NCAA may be tied to a rock and thrown off a bridge makes me happy. And it should make you happy, too, as a sports fan. Because all they do is pick favorites and try to manipulate things to make you think that they care about student athletes when they don't. Anyway, if you want to respond to that, 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. That is the number to call if you'd like to join us here on the Rundown this afternoon, right here on Fox Sports Radio 1400. You can read the full release, by the way. It's up on my blog page at foxsportsradio1400.com. You should be checking that page out every chance you get. I post stuff on my Facebook page, also on the Fox Sports Radio 1400 Facebook page. Yeah, well, all of that, you can check that out and catch the good stuff there. All right, so let's get into what I think about some questions I have heading into the South Carolina camp. Here's the first one. I got several here. Who's going to be the number one guy at receiver? Now, I know a lot of folks are going to tell me, well, it's got to be Nick Muse. Nick Muse is a tight end, and he's made fun of himself online about making catches. Just saying. There's that. But is it going to be the Georgia Tech transfer on Marion Brown? Is it going to be the guy that I'm calling Mr. Gamecock? And that is DeCarrion Joyner, because that's a young man that was a Mr. Football here in South Carolina and had the opportunity to go to other places to play quarterback, which is the position he wanted to play, but he moved to wide receiver to help out the team because he wants to get on the field. And he's a dynamic athlete. I think we can all agree upon that. So there's that. Will it be Xavier Leggett? Will it be Josh Vann? Got a lot of unproven folks there. So we shall see how that works out for the Gamecocks on that front. Then you've also got a talented running back room there. You know, it's much more than just Kevin Harris. You've got Marshawn Lloyd. You've got Zakondre White. He was the guy that was the star of the spring game and really, really lit it up in practice, spring practice. So who's going to be the best complement? There's that too. Who's going to be the backup running back? Because, I mean, Zakondre White played some pretty good football there. Who's going to be the guy that's going to be the one that grabs headlines that's new to the program? Will it be the young man that transferred in from Georgia State? Will it be the young man transferring in from Kansas? We shall see. Will the Gamecocks use the tight end? Aren't we saying that every year about pretty much every team? I venture to say, though, that if you had to pin me down, I would say that the guy that I feel the most confident in to catch a pass for the Gamecocks is Nick Muse. We'll see how that works out. You know, how is the secondary going to shake out for South Carolina? These are notes that I have here. Kansas transfer Karan Prunty, I think, is going to start probably pretty much close to quickly here, to be honest. You know, he was a freshman All-American, broke up 10 passes last season, tied for most among freshmen nationally, and tied for 6th among all players. So he's a pretty good defensive back. Then it comes down to this. What is Luke Doty's development going to look like? Because if you looked at Luke Doty for last season, the guy had issues completing passes further than, 8 yards down the field. Now, a lot of that could be because of Mike Bobo and the offense that Mike Bobo put in there. We didn't go to practice every day. We don't know if Luke Doty could throw those passes down the field or not. So there's all of that in the mix too. Then we come down to a couple of other things. The Gamecock offensive line is kind of a veteran-led group. Will they be able to get together quickly and make some holes for Kevin Harris? So they've got 2 5-star defensive linemen, guys that were really, really big coming out of high school. And let's not forget Kingsley Ngambare, who's a first-team All-SEC player, who was not a 5-star player coming directly out of high school. So on paper, it looks like there's some defensive talent on that line for South Carolina. Will they actually live up to the hype is the best way to put it. And finally, how will Shane Beamer do in his first season with the on-the-field stuff? And what I mean by that is that this is his first season being a head coach where he's going to have to make decisions for the on-the-field things. And the buck stops with him. So with that, how is he going to do? You know, these are things that we can say, all right, he's done everything as far as the preseason and the offseason. He's done great. He went to SEC Media Days, held his own down there in a land of sharks, which is what it is down there, let's be honest. And he held his own. So on that front, how will he do with where everything stops with him? All right, we're taking calls today at 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. As far as the Gamecocks record goes, you got to stick around for that because I'm still debating on a couple of things before I put out my preseason predictions that will go on the bookcase of accountability. Okay? Last season, I had the Gamecocks at 4 wins, and I missed out on that. I finished, 3-7, something like that? But the wheels fell off. I best case scenario, you could look at the Gamecocks winning 6 games, 7 games. Worst case scenario, you could see them going 2-10. That's if the team doesn't buy into what Shane Beamer's doing and the wheels kind of fall off. We're taking your calls at 803-978-1832. I'll give you my full record as we get closer to the point in the season when we have a little bit closer to the kickoff. Okay? I'll give you full record for Clemson and South Carolina, and I'll pick some other teams too. But those are the questions I have. The biggest two is which receiver is going to make the most difference for South Carolina this year. That's going to be huge. And how will Luke Doty do? I want to say there's a part of me that thinks that the defensive line, and I think that defensive line will have the ability to get to quarterbacks, and that can mask a lot of what's going to be there in the secondary. I'd like to think that that's going to be something that can be that the Gamecocks can use to keep themselves in games. But the offense, yes, they've got Kevin Harris. But after that, are you really confident in anything as far as that offense goes? I mean, deep down, Gamecock fans, deep down in your toes, do you really feel confident in the Gamecock offense? And I'm not blaming Shane Beamer for that. He's got to fix what Will Muschamp screwed up. Will Muschamp has a history of that. He put the Florida offense back in the Stone Ages. People seem to forget that. And he left South Carolina the same way. Hopefully athletic directors listen to this show. And if they have any inkling that they're going to hire Will Muschamp as a head coach, they can just look at his last 2 stops and understand that he understands the defensive side of the ball and not the offensive side. Now, the Will Muschamp apologists, they'll get upset with me for that, but that's the truth. I lean on facts. He never had an offense that finished better than 7th in the SEC. That's a problem, especially in today's day and age when Nick Saban even says, you can't just have a defense that can stop people now. You got to score some points. Jimmy likes Dylan Wadham. Okay, that's fair. Will they grade out? All right, 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832 is the number to call. You want to join us here on the Rundown this afternoon on Fox Sports Radio 1400. Agent Muschamp is a legend. That's great, Alan. You're hilarious. Yeah, well, Nick Muse is pretty good, man. Do you feel uber confident in Nick Muse, though? That's fair. I'll buy that. I have a college football. ESPN put their there we go. Let's go this route. Welcome back to the Rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400 around the world on the iHeartRadio app. I'm Rob Sanders. Thanks for checking out the show. Bill Conley, who's been a guest on the program before, released his SEC East preview. And I thought we'd go over some of that really quick here. He's got Vanderbilt with their projected S&P rank of 108th, projected wins at 3.1, with one win coming in the SEC. Likely wins, he says, are East Tennessee State and UConn. No toss-up games, likely losses, everyone else on the schedule. I don't know how great Vanderbilt's going to be. We shall see. A couple of notes on Vanderbilt, which are kind of great. We'll get to that in a moment. But let's head out to the phones. And good afternoon. Welcome to the Rundown.
Hey, what's up, Rob?
What's going on, buddy?
Hey, I was talking at South Carolina offensive line.
All right, what you got?
I feel like Jackpot said in a couple of videos ago, we have some pieces, but when it comes to big game situations or last-minute situations, how are they handling it? Like a 2-minute drive when you have to score, stuff like that.
Well, it could be an issue of depth, too. Let's think about that. I mean, depth could be, and I know that people are tired of hearing about us not having enough depth, but the reality is that that's important. You have to be able to shuffle guys in and out. That way, when you have that 2 minutes in the fourth quarter there, you got guys that are fresh.
I agree. All
right, but hey, I appreciate you calling the show, man. Thank you so much.
And no problem.
There you go with that. Appreciate him calling the program. Of course, back to what I was talking about with Vanderbilt. The other stat that they had from ESPN with Vanderbilt, sometimes ESPN puts out some good stuff. And they only have one AP top 20 finish, and that came in 1948 when Red Sanders, no relation, decided that he led the Commodores to an 8-2-1 record. They finished 12th in the country. Vanderbilt is a team that is like not very they don't have football tradition at all. Bill Conley's look at South Carolina's projections. He's got them at 3.7 wins, 1.8 in the SEC. Likely wins, Eastern Illinois and Vanderbilt. Relative toss-ups, ECU and Troy. I think that South Carolina wins all 4 of those games. Fireval says Vandy was awesome back then. Yeah, in 1948, Fireval was a 20-year-old man that was watching those games with Red Sanders on the sidelines. Anyway, yeah, for South Carolina, though, I think they win all 4 of those games. The question on whether South Carolina is going to go to a bowl or not is if they can beat Tennessee, which they've got more scholarship athletes than Tennessee does, and can they beat Auburn or Missouri? Auburn's the team at home. Missouri is the team on the road. I think that winning with Florida, Texas A&M, Clemson, and Georgia are long shots. And Kentucky's probably more of a toss-up game, in my opinion. All right, so that makes sense with the Gamecocks there. And he writes, Bill Conley does, Beamer inherits former blue chippers like quarterback Luke Doty, defensive tackle Zach Pickens, and edge rusher Jordan Birch. Other unproven entities in running back Kevin Harris, guard Javon Gwynn, and edge rusher Kingsley Ngambare. But his importing of transfers, 9 from the portal, including Georgia State edge rusher Jordan Strachan and Kansas cornerback Karen Prunty, and 3 from junior college, hints at the roster reconstruction effort that's on hand. I completely agree with all of that. For South Carolina to be bowl eligible, they're going to have one of the bigger points is going to have to be Karen Prunty, and he has to play. He can't play like the team at Kansas that he came from. He's going to have to play big boy football. And if he does, then South Carolina might have a chance to get to a bowl. We'll see. We'll see. Some of the notes from South Carolina's history, which I thought was really cool. They won the league title in the ACC in 69, left the league to go independent in 70. Struggled after joining the SEC in 92, bottoming out with an 0-11 run with Lou Holtz during his first season. His next 2 years, they went 17 wins and 2 ranked finishes. And he says the 1984 team is one of the better teams that are there. Gamecock fans will certainly agree upon that. All right, then we move on to Mizzou. Mizzou, he's got them projected at 58th overall, 6.4 wins, 3.4 in the SEC. Likely wins, Southeast Missouri State, North Texas, Vanderbilt, South Carolina, and CMU, which is Central Michigan. Mizzou always loses a game they have no business losing. A lot of that was under the coach they had there before. But I think that Drinkowitz may be in the mix to kind of remedy that. Relative toss-ups, Tennessee at home, that's a game that Mizzou wants. Last season, if I remember correctly, I think Tennessee got them. And I think that's going to be interesting. Now, they play at Boston College. I think they've got a better chance of winning the Tennessee game and losing the Boston College game and then splitting with Kentucky and Arkansas. Blake Online says Mizzou finishes last in the SEC East this year. Blake, I completely disagree with you. I think they're going to finish second in the SEC. I really do. In the East. Not in the SEC, in the East. I think they'll finish second in the East. Because I'm not really buying what Florida's selling. But we shall see. All right, a couple other notes here on Mizzou before we go to a break. They reached number 1 in the AP poll for the first time in 1960. But I didn't know this. Kansas used an ineligible player and beat the Tigers 24-7. The loss was overturned, but Mizzou finished 5th. After 5 bowls in 6 years, Mizzou fell apart almost overnight, suffering 13 straight losing seasons from 84 to 96. They did very well under Gary Pinkel, going 22-6 in 2007 and 8, spending a week at number 1 in the BCS standings and winning 2 Big 12 North titles. So Mizzou's had some success. They do have 2 SEC East titles. But after that, things have kind of fallen off the rail. When we come back here in just a moment, we're going to talk about Tennessee, and the ESPN projections for them are interesting. We'll get into that. And, of course, we'll look at Kentucky and Georgia as well. So we'll have all that for you in a moment. We come back on the rundown. I wanted to tell you guys, hey, I appreciate you checking out the blog page. The numbers for that have been doing really well. It's basically I find stuff with facts and things that are interesting to me and put them all out there. All kinds of cool stuff on the blog page, including the NCAA and their quote-unquote protocols for COVID. So go and check that out. It's on the blog page. Also, a Clemson offensive lineman, Tyquan Johnson, had to have pec surgery. We had that information up there last night, so you could get information as quickly as possible. It's so funny because I can update my blog page from my phone, so it's literally if I catch something or someone tips me off to something, I can get it up and out there pretty quick. So make sure you subscribe to the blog page at Fox Sports Radio 1400. It's on the website there, foxsportsradio1400.com. Also, follow me on Twitter. I'm at Rob Sounds Good. Be sure to check out the information that's there. Podcast of the show is up at 5 o'clock today, and I appreciate your interaction with me on Twitter at Rob Sounds Good. The people that come at me on Twitter are hilarious. Someone was upset that I said yesterday that I thought whoever lost the Clemson-Georgia game was out of the playoff picture. That's just what I feel. Just saying. I think whoever loses that game on September the 4th is out. And a lot of it's got to do with the projections of what Clemson's schedule looks like now. And the fact that I think that if Georgia loses, they may lose another game. All right, quick break. When we come back, we'll look at the rest of these projections from ESPN's Bill Connolly as he does the analytics. More of that when we return on the rundown here on Fox Sports Radio 1400. No, he didn't say Kevin Harris was unproven. I don't think that's what I said. I've made mistakes. If I said Kevin Harris is unproven, you guys know me better than that. I don't think Kevin Harris is unproven at all. So there's that. Chubbs, I mean, if you believe that, man, hey, that's awesome. I know he put up the numbers at Myrtle Beach, man. He was great. Blake, if you truly believe that, then how can you possibly think that Tennessee's going to finish higher than they are when they had 29 scholarship players leave? I mean, it's math. It's nothing against Tennessee. It's just the numbers. Yes, Beth, I do. I do think that losing to Georgia automatically knocks Clemson out because I think that Clemson's not going to have anybody else on their schedule that's going to light the fires. Unless Boston College and NC State, those are two teams that I think could challenge and maybe do something. Not anything too crazy, but I think that Boston College is going to be pretty good. Good enough that Coach Jeff Hafley is going to be going somewhere else. What game, Elijah? You got them winning Pitt, Mizzou, Kentucky, or Ole Miss? Yeah, if I said Kevin Harris is unproven, that's not what I meant. I meant that I think your defensive linemen are unproven. Pickens, Birch, I think those guys are unproven. Ole Miss, if that game's at home, yeah, that game's at home. Vol Steak, you know what? You're right, man. I don't know what the NCAA's problem is. Figure it out. Well, welcome back to the rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400 around the world in the iHeartRadio app. Reading some of these comments from Bill Conley from ESPN about the SEC East predictions here. And, you know, I said this yesterday on the show, 29 players left because of they left with the transfer portal. They ended up getting 19 guys back into the program that were Power 5 players. I just think that that's just too much for Tennessee to overcome, but we shall see. Tennessee may go out and blow everybody out of the water. I mean, they haven't done that in a while, but, you know, hey, who knows on that front? That's the best part about college football. We could sit here and make assumptions all we want, but the reality is determined between the hash lines, basically. All right, so Bill Conley's analytics, though, says Tennessee has likely wins over Tennessee Tech, Bowling Green, South Alabama, Vanderbilt, and South Carolina. That's what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wins there. Relative toss-up games, Pitt at Mizzou, at Kentucky, and Ole Miss. Likely losses, Georgia at Florida and at Alabama. You know, I completely agree on the 3 bottom ones that I think those are going to be tough for the Vols to deal with. The relative toss-up games, though, I think Mizzou's got them stamped. They want that game big time. It's in Como. We'll see how that works out for them, but that's going to be interesting. That's probably one of those sneaky games. The Pitt game is also a sneaky game. We went to ACC kickoff a couple of weeks ago, and the vibe around Pitt, when you talk to any of the writers that are up there and anybody that follows them, is that Coach Narduzzi is their teams are going to play good defense, which they do. They're not going to get blown out, which a lot of times they don't. And they're going to run the ball. It's almost an old school way of looking at football, the way that Coach Narduzzi does his things there. Now, I know Josh Heupel wants to bring in that high-powered offense that he had at Central Florida, and that's great. God bless him with all that. But the reality is that in your first season, a team like Pitt is going to be a problem. And that's one of those matchups where if I had to place a bet early in the season, I would take Pitt. I really, really would. The Kentucky game, and you know, I said this before, and we're gonna have Kentucky stuff in a second. Until you get a quarterback, I'm not buying Kentucky beating a lot of folks. You know, Kentucky and Pitt have a lot in common. They both try to win games with defense and running the football. The difference between Kentucky and Pitt is Pitt has a 5th-year starter in Kenny Pickett. But Conley has Tennessee projected to win 6.7 games, 3.4 in the SEC. So we'll round up and say that it's 7 wins. But likely wins, he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 relative toss-ups, 1, 2, 3, 4. So in the relative toss-up likely win scenario, he's got them winning 9 games. I am not buying that. That's why we're putting these over there on the bookcase of accountability. I could be wrong about Tennessee. And you know what? Tennessee's screwed me before. I thought Jeremy Pruitt was doing some great stuff. I thought Jeremy Pruitt, and folks that have listened to the program, they've heard me talk about this. I thought Jeremy Pruitt was going to bring them to a point where they were going to be relevant once again. Because growing up, I'm at the age where I'm like I'm old man yelling at the sky again, but I'm at the age where I remember Tennessee being really good. I mean, really good. That T symbol normally meant you got your butt kicked. They were always really good when I was younger. Now they're not. And the sad thing is that they've got the fan base. Their fan base is rabid as all get out. They've got the facilities. They're rated as one of the better in the conference. They're willing to spend money. They've got a huge stadium. They've got all of that. So what the hell is the problem at Tennessee? It comes back down to finding that right coach. And if Tennessee ever gets that right coach, look out. Look out, ladies and gentlemen. We talk about the ACC all the time about, Miami has to get back and, Florida State has to get back. The team that's got to get back in the SEC is Tennessee. Georgia has been running rampant, taking the SEC East titles. Florida wins it every now and then. But the reality, it's pretty much Georgia's division. Used to not be that way. Tennessee was always jumping up and down and doing the things that were right. Wesley. I'll call him Wes. He might get mad at me. He says it's the administration that's holding them back. And that may be true, but you got to fix that. New athletic director, new coach. The slate is wiped clean. Tennessee needs to get back to being where they were before, because right now they're not very intimidating. They're not. And I know that Tennessee fans don't want to hear that, but you're not one of those schools that you look at and think, oh my goodness, we're going to have issues. Anyway, let's move on from Tennessee. We'll head into Kentucky. That's the next one here on the list. Kentucky Wildcats, these got them projected to win 6.9 games. So we'll round that up to 7. Going 3.6 wins in the SEC. Actually, we'll go to the phones, 803-978-1832. Welcome into the rundown. Good afternoon.
Hey, man, how you doing?
Hey, what's up?
So, Elijah, I really feel like, Tennessee can make some strides this year. And it's been hard going. I've been a Tennessee fan since like 2006, so it's not been a lot of good memories.
Right. You weren't there for the really good stuff.
I wasn't. And I heard about it because my mom and my grandpa were really big, huge Tennessee fans.
It's like folklore for you, but I mean, it was there. I remember it happening. So, but go ahead.
And Butch Jones was close. I genuinely believe 2015, that talent on that roster, they had you look at the games they lost. Alabama, Oklahoma, very, very close games. I don't know how we always find ways to lose to Florida, but we do. But that year, they were talent-wise, they were good. I think that getting rid of Mike DeBoer was, a horrendous thing to do. But I think that they're going to surprise some people this year. I wasn't as a Tennessee, I wasn't necessarily super excited about the Josh Heupel hire. To me, but the more I hear, the more excited I get. I think Danny White's a good AD. I think he's going to bring Tennessee back into the modern era. And if you look back at things, Tennessee needs to move away from the Philip Fulmer type era, the Philip Fulmer type thinking, because that's what's kept, with everything that's happened over the past couple of years, and, it's just, I really believe that David Cutcliffe has always in Tennessee won the national championship ever. If you look back at the facts of the matter, Philip Fulmer was never near as successful when David Cutcliffe was never there.
That could be a fair statement too, man. Hey, listen, buddy, during the season, I want to get everyone's opinion from around the country. And when we have on Monday with reactions from across the SEC and the ACC, I'd love for you to call us up on Mondays when that time rolls around, man. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you for taking my call.
All right, bud. Have a great day. All right. Well, he's right. You can think about that from a perspective of David Cutcliffe being – man, when you see David Cutcliffe, by the way, I got to see him for a couple of minutes up there at ACC kickoff, and he looks like a librarian when you really stop and think about it. But you know what? Something else I thought about with Tennessee, and I know that there's a lot of stuff that's bad water under the bridge, but imagine if Tennessee would have if they could have kept Lane Kiffin. maybe Lane Kiffin needed to go to Nick Saban's rehab camp down there at Alabama, but if they would have shouldered all of the stuff that Lane Kiffin had and kept them moving, people seem to remember that Lane Kiffin made the comment to Alshon Jeffrey, the Gamecock wide receiver, about, yeah, if you go to South Carolina, you'll end up pumping gas. How'd that end up working out for you? It's really funny stuff. But Lane Kiffin's a bright offensive mind, man. All right, when we come back, we'll look at Kentucky, Tennessee, and Florida before we get out of here. You're listening to The Rundown. This is Fox Sports Radio 1400. Vol Steak, you're right, man. Look, and I'm one of those old school people. I know I sound like, once again, I'm the old man yelling at the wall or the moon or whatever, but I remember Tennessee being really good. I mean, really good. And then all of a sudden, they're like spaghetti thrown against the wall. It's just not good, man. Not good at all. But I think that Tennessee they almost remind me of Miami in the ACC. Like, they have everything. Well, actually, Tennessee's got more than Miami has. I mean, Florida State's probably a better example. But Tennessee just needs to. I don't understand why Tennessee is not better than they are. Florida ended up having to deal with the stench of Will Muschamp, who is quite possibly one of the worst hires in SEC history. And they still managed to win the East, 2 times? I mean, even after the whole Muschamp thing is over with? I honestly think that if you had to hold me down, I think that Tennessee has the potential to be a better program than Florida, if they could get their stuff together. But look, and I'm not a fan of Tennessee. I'm not ramming you all over it. You don't play. It's just frustrating when I see potential in certain things and it just doesn't happen. But we shall see. Yeah, and see, I thought that's what you were going to get when you had your last coach there. I really thought, and man, he made me look stupid. Because I honestly thought he was going to come in and get it right. He ended up just looking. I'm ashamed of myself for saying I thought he was going to be worth a damn on the radio. I really, really am. That's a tough one for me to think about there, Mr. Husker football. With Illinois, I think that they have their quarterback. If he's good to go, they're going to be an interesting set, but it may be Nebraska. It might. Hey, you guys, give the channel a like up there. I appreciate it. We're here every day at 3:00. Jackpot and I do a show tonight. My fine bald friend from the upstate. You guys, make sure you tune in for that. That's at 9:30 tonight. Best and worst case scenarios for Clemson. Uh-oh. Here we go. Welcome back to the Rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400 around the world on the iHeart Radio app. Lots of folks checking in online today. Go and check out the Fox Sports Radio 1400 Facebook page. You can see the chat over there. Lots of talk about Tennessee. And I kind of stand by what I said. They've got everything but a coach. Once you get a coach, man, that's the way to go. Maybe Josh Heupel's the guy. The crazy thing is you don't know. Like, no one thought Lincoln Riley could do what he did at Oklahoma. He was a young, hot-shot guy. Let's see what he can do. Same thing goes for, any coach. There were sections of Clemson fans that were laughing at Dabo Swinney. He's running and doing chest bumps on the sidelines with people. People weren't buying into that. Now they'll fight you over Dabo Sweeney. Just saying, the sad thing is you just don't really know. All right, let's move to Kentucky really quick here because I've only got about 5 minutes left in the program. Kentucky, projecting them at 7 wins, 3 losses in the SEC. Or 3 wins in the SEC. Likely wins in New Mexico State, Chattanooga, Louisiana Monroe, at Vandy, at South Carolina. Toss-up games, Mizzou, Tennessee, Louisville, at Mississippi State. Likely losses to LSU, Florida, and Georgia. The Wildcats play 5 teams, projected 90th or worse. The only thing I like about Kentucky this season, actually a couple of things. I think Rodriguez is pretty good. I think the defense is going to be okay, but their schedule is probably the easiest in the SEC. Your road games in the SEC are at Vanderbilt, at South Carolina, at Georgia, at Mississippi State. You get Tennessee at home, LSU at home, Florida at home. So, as far as the scheduling goes, winning up there at Kroger Field is tough on a lot of teams. But that's kind of, I go back to what I said for the longest time now. They need to figure out who's going to be their quarterback. Until they figure out who a quarterback's going to be, Kentucky's doomed to be 6-6, 7-5, 8-4 at best. All right, up next is the Florida Gators. The Florida Gators are projected to win 9.5 games, so we'll round it up to 10. 5.7 in the SEC, round that up to 6. They got them going basically 6-2. Toss-up games at LSU, home versus Georgia. Likely losses, Alabama at home in week 2. Likely wins, Samford, Vanderbilt, FAU, USF, at South Carolina, Florida State, Tennessee, at Mizzou, and at Kentucky. So, the big thing with this team is that they lost Kyle Squared, Kyle Pitts, Kyle Trask. They're having to replace all of that, and Todd Grantham's going to have to figure out what to do there on the defensive front there for the Florida Gators. But I don't see them winning 9 games. I really don't. I'm just not buying them. And then finally, we have the Georgia Bulldogs. They've got them projected to win 9.8, so 10 wins, 6.6 in the SEC. So they've got them dropping a game. If you round it up to 7, likely wins, Charleston Southern, at Vandy, South Carolina, UAB, Mizzou, Kentucky, Arkansas, at Tennessee, at Georgia Tech, at Auburn. Likely losses, none. Toss-up games are Florida and Clemson. The 2 games on that schedule that are tough for them. And to be honest, I think they beat Florida. I really do think they beat Florida at home, or it's in Jacksonville. I'm sorry. And then I think that the Clemson game is going to be a nip and tuck affair, in my opinion. So a lot of that comes down to this too. JT Daniels, their quarterback, was able to get himself squared away, lost their go-to receiver in George Pickens. My other notes here on Georgia as I've been putting my stuff together here. They've got Adam Anderson and Channing Tindall and some young guys that can help with the linebacker. The secondary, though, and I've mentioned this before, they are going to rely on some transfers. Tyke Smith from West Virginia and Clemson's Darion Kendrick. Can they get to a point where at the beginning of the season that those guys are going to be counted on? If they're counted on, then and they have any slips, it could be a problem. I think the Clemson offense is going to do some things there. I really do. Now, as far as Georgia, if they have the running game and everything else to keep it, if it's a low-scoring game, I like Georgia to win. I really do. I don't think Clemson wants to get into a 17-13 type matchup with Georgia because I think they'll wear down. That's just my opinion. But we shall see on that game. We'll have plenty of time to preview that game as we get closer to it. But the analytics have Georgia winning the East and winning 7 games. with the only projected loss being to Florida. So under that logic, they've got Florida. I guess he's got Florida winning 6 games in the SEC. So that means, because Florida's got LSU too. I think that LSU's probably going to beat them at home. So with that, give me Georgia to win the East. Alan online says UGA has an outstanding kicker and punter. Yes, sir. Okay, sir. I'll buy that for $1. Way to go on that for correcting me. You can feel free to correct me on Twitter. I'm at Rob Sounds Good if you want to get involved with the program there. It's great that I get to come in here every day, and I say this, but I am truly thankful that I get to come in and talk sports with you every day. As part of my job here at the iHeart Media Complex, I get to come in and talk sports, and it's just really cool. Now, in addition to me here on this fine radio station, you get my buddy Lawton Swan with Clemson Sports Talk. He is the czar of Clemson Sports.
Stop looking at me, Swan!
Follow him on Twitter. He's at Clemson Sports. You can also follow his website, clemsonsportstalk.com. Great message board, all kinds of good stuff over there. And people are in the closet about it, but Gamecock fans love his show. Let's go ahead and check out the Swan as he heads today from 4 to 6. As I said, I'm on Twitter at Rob Sounds Good. Podcast will be up at 5 o'clock. We'll be back at it tomorrow here on The Rundown, right here on Fox Sports Radio 1400. All right, you guys are awesome. Appreciate all of you for checking out the show. Give it a like up there if you don't mind, man. Trying to expand it just a little bit. New Rob and Jackpot show tonight. Thank you, Fireball. New Rob and Jackpot show tonight. I want to call the show Rob and Jackpot show. I don't think he wants me to do that, but Rob and Kale show tonight. We're going to discuss the absolute best and the absolute worst for Clemson. Bum, bum, bum. Check that out, 9:30 tonight. You guys are awesome. I appreciate you. We'll see you tomorrow.